This is Jahara. Welcome to another episode of In the Line of Wire. I have somebody very special with me today, somebody who's been a part of the IT industry for longer than most of us. And so, I'll have to begin myself. Please welcome Mr. Ashraf Kapadia. Hi, Ashraf.
Thank you.
Ashraf is the Managing Director of Systems Limited, which is the oldest IT company in Pakistan. And he's also the former president of Pasha. So we have something in common. And he's done some amazing things. He spent a long time with IBM, for which we will have to forgive him. Hi, Ashraf. Now, tell me.
Hi again.
Tell me, Systems Limited.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for so long.
Yep.
Can we take a journey, a very brief journey as to how it started and where it's at today?
Well, Systems Limited started in 1977, so almost 32 years. This year we'll be 32 years old.
Okay.
It started as an idea of Syed Babar Ali, who most of us know as who's a very
from
big,
packages, right?
From packages, Nestle, a number of other company, Treat and so on and so forth.
Right.
So he had an idea back in 77 that there should be a software house in Pakistan. He got together with Azaz Hussain, who is another very old friend of mine.
And the founder president of Pasha.
And the founder president of Pasha also. He had left IBM because he and I joined IBM together in 71. He left IBM in 76 and was working with Syed Babar Ali in one of the companies that Babar Ali was heading. And so with Babar Ali's funding and entrepreneurship and with Azaz's knowledge of IT, Systems Limited came into being as a service bureau in 1977, because in those days computer import was banned. You couldn't import any computers into the country. There were a few large mainframes for which you would get individual permissions from the government. And what happened was WAPDA had got a new mainframe installed. So Syed Babar Ali and Systems Limited purchased the old IBM 360 and installed it in Systems Limited and started it as a service bureau and started doing bureau jobs for clients like Vasa, the Water and Sewerage Authority in Lahore, packages and a number of others. So that's how...
Mostly domestic business.
Only domestic business. And not only domestic, primarily they started with concentration in Lahore, later on spread throughout the country.
Right.
So that's how Systems Limited came into being, and for many, many years it was purely a service bureau. We would do development work, we would create applications for our client, but these would be run on our own mainframe systems. And we continued like that till the early 80s, when computer import was opened up in the country and then people started taking their own systems. At that point in time, Systems Limited reinvented itself and instead of a service bureau, became a software development house. And we started making applications for clients at that point in time.
Right. And how many other software companies existed at the time?
Well, when we started, there was no software house per se. Prior to the 77 time frame, there were a few consulting companies which would also do application development. EWP or East West Pakistan Consulting was one of them, and a few others. But primarily the computer installations one could count on the fingertips, the banks, the airline, one or two in the government. So everybody had their in-house development capabilities. And something I'd like to mention, way back in the early 70s, when I joined IBM in 71, software was free from IBM. So you not only got the operating system, but application system free from IBM. So if PIA wanted an airline reservation system in those days, it would be given free. You just buy the hardware, you would get an
inventory. Why didn't we stay at that instead of now selling software? We wouldn't have an industry if we didn't sell software.
Maybe, and it's primarily because IBM was challenged by the antitrust legislation in the US, the Monopoly Commission, and they made IBM unbundled hardware from software. And that's how, the software industry came into being.
Okay. Now, but in 1980, there were only a few consulting companies and Systems Limited.
Yes.
When did the industry actually start to grow? When did you see more software companies come into
Really
existence?
speaking, I think as late as the 1995 time frame, there were not many companies. There were a few who were coming up, but not many. I think in the 95 to 2000 time frame, when the hype of the Y2K was there, when everybody started talking about the industry, also the PC was maturing so that the, let's say, availability became much higher. Then you saw a mushrooming of
and then you saw lots of them going towards delivering Y2K solutions.
Yeah, Y2K was a good time, I mean, including Systems Limited. In 95, we started building a Y2K conversion tool.
Okay.
And in 1997, we went to the US along with IBM and presented that tool, which was a specific tool for the IBM AS400, to the IBM AS400 labs in Rochester, the IBM labs. They were very enthusiastic about our tool, and they said that this is the best of breed, we want to adopt that as a standard tool. But unfortunately, our tool only worked on the IBM AS400. It did not work for the mainframes or for the RISC architecture or the Linux, Unix world. And IBM wanted one which would work on all of them. So IBM finally adopted HAL or HAL, which was a conversion tool. But we were very encouraged by the good comments that we got out of the IBM labs, the Rochester lab. And we decided that we will market that tool on our own in the US. So in 1997, which was almost 20 years since we had been working, that was the first time we stepped outside Pakistan and stepped into the export market. So we purchased a company called VisionNet System, which was owned by another former IBMer, Arshad Masood, who was in the US. And we did a stock swap with them. So VisionNet System became a wholly owned subsidiary of Systems Limited, and Arshad Masood got some shares in Systems Limited. And that was our entry into the US market. Our tool was very, very successful. We didn't know what to do with it. We didn't know how to, take care of all the orders. And we got a lot of Fortune 500 clients, Titleist and FootJoy, Countrywide Home Loans, you name it, and Polo Life Run, and a number of others, banks, apparel industries, anything.
And they've stayed with you.
And most of them stayed with us. And in the 97, 98 time frame, we were really making a lot of money. But then came 99 and 2000, the dotcom bubble was bursting. 2001, 9/11 was happening, and the industry started tanking. And we were hurt, just like everybody else was being hurt. So what we did is we stepped back and said, let's have a look at what is successful, how can we be successful in the future, and so on. Because I think in this industry, you have to reinvent yourself every 5 to 7 years.
Yes, if
or
you're
maybe
going to be
earlier.
successful or
otherwise, somebody else will come along, take your cheese away, and you will be sunk. So in 2001, we stepped back. We looked at what we were successful at, and we found out that just by chance, of all the customers that we had serviced, there were two industries where we got a lot of business domain knowledge.
Right.
One was mortgage banking, and the other was apparel. Okay. Now, one has got nothing to do with the other. Mortgage banking, we had clients like Bank of America, IndyMac, and so on and so forth. Whereas here we had clients like Liz Claiborne, Kelwood, Polo Ralph Lauren, and so on and so forth. But over the years, when we were doing their Y2K conversions and follow-on technology projects, we had learned how their business worked.
And that's essential if you're going to be working on a client's IT systems, if you don't understand the domain, it's...
In those days, it was essential. Prior to that, in the 80s and the 90s, I mean, if you were a technology guru, you could fool anybody into giving you work. But in the 2000 time frame, business domain became much more important. And Systems Limited reinvented itself to say, okay, fine, we know Java, we know C++, or we know Oracle and so on and so forth, but that's not what's going to sell. If we can go and talk to the client about mortgage banking, then he will talk to us. If we can go to apparel company and talk to them about supply chain, that's what we are going to be able to sell. And so there were tough years in 2001, 2002, when we wanted to build up this expertise. There was expertise with us, but it was not at a level that our people could go and talk to the senior level business executives.
Right.
So in 2001, 2002, while we were suffering, we did take an even better pill and stepped back from technology engagements and started developing our people in the business domain. Okay. And that paid off, because come 2003, 4, 5, we again sort of really boomed on these two industries.
Right.
More on the mortgage industry than on the apparel, but both of them gave us a lot of multi-million-dollar clients, which previously we were never getting. We were getting small engagements, technology engagements, and the profit margins were lower because anybody could write a program if the specs were there.
Right.
So in the 2003-4 time frame, we again started growing significantly, and till last year we have been growing. And significantly growing. Now, this year is a tough year.
For everybody.
Now, for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of overall revenue, we'll still grow.
Okay.
We'll still grow.
Not as much as you were growing in previous years.
Not as much as we are used to. I mean, aadtein bhi kharab ho gayi hai na. So if we are not growing at 35%, we think there's no growth. But you know, I mean, even a 5-10% growth is growth when you look at the rest of the industry. So we'll still grow, but a modest growth as compared to what we were used to.
Okay, now tell me, Systems Limited started from Lahore. Now you have a big presence here in Karachi. You have an office of VisionNet in the US, in New Jersey. You also have an office in India, in Bangalore. How is the work distributed? What kind of people do you have in the different offices?
Okay, I'll take the US first. In the US, we have high-level consultants, both technical, where they have to do the architecture of a solution that is to be made for the client, but more so the business domain experts, the subject matter specialists that are there.
Right.
The SMEs.
And the size is about 100 people, right?
No, in the US we are about 50 people.
50 people, okay.
So they are the ones who are primarily based at the client side and interacting with the client, getting their their requirements and passing it back to the Pakistani company.
Okay.
In Pakistan, we have those type of business domain specialists as well as technical architects. And they work for the US clients also, but they also focus on the Pakistani marketplace.
Right.
And in Pakistan, we have now about a little over 700 people.
Right.
And they are roughly divided equally between what I would call IT professionals, like developers, architects, network specialists, and so on and so forth, and BPO or IT-enabled service associates or specialists, who are specialized in doing the back office work for a client. Like some people may know how to transfer the title of a house from one guy to the other. Others would know how to read, let's say, gas measurement charts from industrial consumption or production and so on and so forth. So these guys are not really IT specialists. They can just use IT tools to do a client's job. And there are roughly about 350 of both categories.
Okay.
Now, coming to India, we have a subsidiary in India, which is actually a subsidiary of our US operations.
Right.
And the prime reason for that is that, as you know, that it's very difficult to get a job in the US with a Pakistani company. Most of the people say, we like you. If you were in Bangalore, we would give you the job today. And basically, the Bangalore operations is an answer to if you were in Bangalore.
Okay.
And
so now you can say, yes, we are.
yes, we are in Bangalore, and there is a cost differential.
Right.
There's at least a 30%, maybe more cost differential between the Bangalore operations and the Pakistani operations.
Okay.
When we started about 2 years ago or thereabouts, it was a 30% differential, but over the year that has increased because the Indian rupee has strengthened and so on and so forth. So whenever a client is worried about continuity of operations with the Pakistani thing, we give him a guarantee that if needed, we'll shift your work to India, but we will give you a price break if you want to do it in Pakistan.
Right.
Most of the people accept that and give the work in Pakistan. However, if somebody really wants us to do it in India, then we do it in India.
But at a higher cost.
At a higher cost. But that is more to do with BPO business than development.
Right.
Because what we feel is that the type of expertise and the, let's say, the type of work that you can get out of Pakistani professionals is far superior to the type of work that you can get out of Indian professionals.
Software professionals.
Software professionals.
Right.
They are far more enterprising, far more creative, and willing to take on a challenge. Whereas in India, it's primarily, give me the specs, I'll code it for you.
Right.
Rather than tell me the business problem and I'll create a solution for you.
Okay.
So that is a very qualitative difference, which makes me very proud to be a Pakistani, to know that the type of work we are doing is a level higher than the type of work they are doing. Of course, in terms of quantity, we don't match, not at all.
But that may be, Ashraf.
Doesn't matter.
No, but the reason for that could also possibly be because they've focused for a long, long time on BPO and delivering service rather than creating IP.
Yeah, even taking that into account, I mean, we say, okay, India is probably 20 times bigger than us in terms of the industry. So what if it is 20 times bigger? It's 10 times bigger anyways in terms of everything else.
Of course.
So, I mean, 1:20 nahi lagta. It's more like 1:2 if you take everything else into comparison.
Correct.
But, not taking anything away from
Of
them.
course,
They have been
yes.
successful. They have been big. But I still feel that the type of work that we can get out of Pakistan is far superior. And that you can see in the companies that are here. I mean, we are very small in terms of size compared to the India. But if you look at the type of companies, I mean, of course, Systems Limited is one of them, but if you look at Pixsense, ITLOW, Mixit, and you name it, Five Rivers Technology, there is a long list of people who are doing world-class work.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's not just systems, it's the whole industry which is at a different plane.
Okay, now that we've got to this subject, I really want to take it a little bit further. So, okay, both of us agree that we're doing really good quality work, far superior work than people expect out of Pakistan, very innovative solutions coming out of all parts of the country. How can we grow this so that we are taken a lot more seriously as an industry? Because, it may not be revenue that all of us look at, it's also the passion for the work we do. But still, I mean, revenue matters to the country as well as to the companies involved. How can we grow this significantly?
Well, I mean, the standard answer is the answer that we have been giving all along, which is we don't have enough facilities, infrastructure, office space, connectivity, human resources, image of Pakistan, the biggest problem, and so on and so forth. So all those typical answers remain. Now, I don't see, let's say, a resolution of those typical answers, so I will not dwell on this question from that aspect.
Yeah, what is doable?
What I would say is that the single most, to my mind, thing which can take our industry a quantum jump forward is mergers and acquisitions.
Correct.
Because, I mean, Systems Limited, let's say, is a 900, 800 people company. NetSol is probably 500, 600 people company. Siddharth has a similar size. For me to take systems from 900 to 2000 will take a long time. But if 2 or 3 companies merge, or if smaller companies merge, that way we can come to a company which is a sizable presence. And once we have crossed a certain limit, let's say once we cross a 5,000 man company or a 3,000-man company, then growth is a different factor altogether. Unfortunately, our mindset as Pakistanis does not allow us to go as fast on mergers and acquisitions as we should. Because in mergers and acquisition, instead of looking at how the bigger pie's smaller piece will be for me, people just look at whether I own the pie or don't own the pie.
Right.
So a mindset change in our, let's say, business leadership has to take place so that we can move on joining forces together. There are companies which have a very good product but are not in a certain market, whereas
right.
there's a company which has access to the market but not the product. So a collaboration and a formal collaboration, I mean not just an agency agreement, but
right.
a formal, let's say, merger or an acquisition by one of the other is what will take this company to the next level.
Okay. So that's something that we need to
That's something that we need to work on to educate our CEOs, our owners, that is something that will give them more money.
Okay. Now, Systems Limited also works in the domestic market and has continued to expand that market for itself. You also work on, I believe, government projects as well as commercial projects here. What has that experience been like, and do these projects take longer than projects that you would do in the export market?
In a nutshell, yes. If you are talking about a government project, of course there is a lot more bureaucracy involved, lot more processes to follow, and it does take a longer time for it to get to production.
Right.
And in the US market, because again we are primarily working with the private sector and not the public sector, our experience has been that it is fast.
Right.
But here also, working in the private sector, some of the private sector companies move fairly fast.
Okay.
And you can get things done in a timely manner.
Okay.
Government, of course, one has to take it, that their processes, their bureaucracy, it takes its own time.
Of course. But then that's all governments, not
That's
just the
all.
Pakistan
That's
government.
probably all government, yeah.
Right. Now, Systems is also in the animation space, which is exciting. I mean, one would not have thought that where you began as an organization that you would reinvent yourself yet again to take on animation.
We dabbled in animation because in something like 2005 time frame, 6 time frame, we thought that let's try that out. So we did set up a studio in Lahore, and we did some very nice
projects.
work.
Yeah.
We did some very nice projects for the local market as well as for the US market. One of the very large US studios work was subcontracted to us from another company, and we did some animation for that. But unfortunately, that's a business area which at least I don't understand very well. And it is not possible to take that forward without the right sort of management structure, without the right sort of people leading that. And that is where we had a problem. So our animation studio, which was called Animesta, is sort of on a slow burner approach rather than really catching on.
Oh, that's so sad.
But it's, I'll again say, it's mainly because it's a business that we don't understand that well. It's a business that can be done very well, but we don't understand it as well as it should be done.
You know, that is what is sad, because there's some very good animation work, including what you did. And this is an area which can earn for this country a lot of revenue. What do you think we need to do as an industry or as a country to encourage more animation houses or IT companies to get into animation?
I don't know about what we can do as an industry, because I mean our industry has very limited resources. But probably from a government perspective, if let's say somebody can put together a case for the ICT R&D fund to set up a state-of-the-art studio where young creative people can do stuff which can then be sent out.
Good
because
idea.
it requires a lot of investment.
It does.
When we got into it, we thought, okay, fine, a few PCs here and there, a few servers, but it's not. It's
not that.
really, really expensive.
And also training for the people who come and work in.
Training I think you can still get with some people who are in the market, but the initial expense of setting up a studio with state-of-the-art equipment, I think ICT R&D fund could be approached. Maybe somebody like you can put together a business case and say, okay, let's set it up. And then,
but do you think it's a studio we need, or it's in an institute? Because there's so much learning to be had before you can produce good quality animation, because it's creative work, design, as well as audio and video work, animation work.
Okay.
So
actually, though, you need an institute which would churn out people, train them and throw them out.
And maybe that can have a studio or an incubation center within the facility.
But I mean, that's a very, very large project.
True.
Therefore, I suggest a studio, so at least something gets going, which is not as formal as an institute, where people can come and play with things, and you could run it that way. Ultimately, you need an institute, and probably an institute which could be aligned with one of the art colleges or universities like Indus Valley or the NCA. But that will take a long time to gestate and come into being. So probably a studio which could be funded by the ICT R&D, because there would be a lot of R&D in it in any case, and that could probably kick us off.
Right.
Yeah, but it would need somebody to spearhead it, and you can do that.
Yeah, it's always me who has to do it, and Rabia can get involved.
Seriously, I mean, you need that. I mean, we have learned that at least somebody like me can't add value to it. I mean, I can administrate it, but I can't add value.
You need some people who have the passion for creation and animation. Okay, now Ashraf, you also are connected with a number of universities, and you have been trying to help them with their curriculum and advice and mentoring. Tell us, what do we need to do really at the level of universities and at the level of industry to sort of sync them together, maybe make sure more of an understanding is created between the two, so that we're not always complaining about each other, the academia saying industry is not interested, industry saying, well, they're not producing the kind of people we need. We need to get past that.
We need to get past that. I mean, as you said, I have been working with some universities, KIIT, FAST sometime, and so on and so forth. But it's a very slow process, and unfortunately the industry does not have the time to do that, although it is fairly important. Some good work is being done by the university in Islamabad.
GIK?
No, not GIK.
NUST.
By having a corporate advisory council which meets every 2-3 months.
And all of us are on it. I think everybody that I know is on it.
That sort of thing could, if that could be formalized with other colleges and universities, that would help. But I think it's the industry has to take a step forward. Probably Pasha can take the lead in it. I would be more than happy to work as part of any group that is
terrific. We have our first volunteer. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always volunteering. That's not a problem. Whether I do something or not, it's different. I volunteer all the time.
No, you've done quite a bit.
So I think it's important that we remain close to the universities. Otherwise, they work in isolation, and we work in isolation. It's not their fault. It's not our fault. But I think we need to take the first step in that.
Okay, so perhaps this year is the year then we should do it.
We should.
Things are a little slow, so perhaps we can start some new initiatives. Infrastructure, again, is something that we have all talked about, and IT parks and the lack of IT parks in Karachi specifically. Do you think we're going to get past that, or are we going to create our own? I know you've got Systems has their own building, or at least has rented an entire building.
We have rented an entire building in Karachi. We have purchased land in Lahore. We will be starting the building project there soon. And many others. NetSol has its own building, and so on.
Autosoft has got their own building.
Autosoft has got its own building in defense in Lahore. So I think that is the way it will continue to.
But that larger companies can do. But what about the smaller ones? Shouldn't we be clustering them so that?
We should be clustering them, but who takes the lead on it? I don't think that any of the companies are large enough to do that. It has to be the government.
Right.
The government, starts and stops and fits and so on. But they are also late, and then when they do come in, I believe the cost is prohibitive. I believe that in Lahore now what the IT park, which is the new IT park, is far more expensive than what people are willing to pay.
Okay. Shouldn't there be a survey done so that they know what people are prepared to pay before the park is built?
The problem is that if you have that state-of-the-art facility, either the government should be willing to subsidize it significantly, otherwise it will cost that.
Right.
I mean, I am paying something like 40, 50 rupees a square feet, and the IT park is probably double or triple that. But the facilities are far better.
Right.
But our cost structure doesn't allow us to go that expensive.
So do you think if the government subsidized it, say for the first 3 years or something like that, allowing the company to then get to a stage where they could afford it, would that work, or do you think that wouldn't work either?
Well, once the industry takes off on its own, then obviously that would work. But maybe 3 years is a little short, maybe 5 years is what we are looking for.
Okay.
So those things have to come into play. Right now I think that the projects that are there are not really cost effective anymore. Initially when we moved into the National IT Park in Karachi, it was a very good deal because we got it at 18 rupees a square feet.
Yeah, but then look at the facility.
I know the facility was bad, but even with that condition, I don't think that we ever had any problem to say, okay, it's not worth the money.
Right.
I mean, it was not state of the art, but we were only paying 18 rupees.
And you were all clustered there.
We were all clustered there, and 18 rupees was nothing.
No, it's quite,
so
quite cheap.
It's quite cheap.
By any standards.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, either we should be willing to pay that big amount or not crib about what we get.
Okay.
But I think the government needs to do something about it, and they need to do something in Karachi.
Right.
Lahore, Islamabad still has some facilities. Karachi still is crying out for that.
No, there's no
There's
IT park
here.
here
Nothing
that
here, really.
the government has set up.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, they talk about an IT city. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it'll not.
Maybe.
We're working with the government now.
CDGK.
Yeah, CDG, well, not CDGK, even TDAP has come into the picture, and they're talking about perhaps getting the government to look at, there's going to be a textile city and an education city, why not an IT city? Any other final words, especially for the young entrepreneurs? There are a lot more young people now who are starting companies in the IT space, and they're doing some very good work. Any advice that you have for them?
I don't think I can give them any advice except admire them, because I mean, the number of companies that have come up and the type of companies that are coming up.
I know, I'm so excited.
It's amazing.
It is.
And I would encourage them, especially the young ones, to try it out, some form of entrepreneurship in the early years.
Right.
Because once you are set and stuck in a
then
job,
you're scared.
then you are scared. Then you have too many other responsibilities, to take care of. So they should jump in right when they are ready for it. Maybe we could, sort of encourage them. I know that Pasha is already doing that workshop.
Insiders,
that sort of thing more, so that there are more people who come out and we see companies, like Jugadi.com or the Faizan Bazaar company, Scribe, or some of the others.
There are a lot of them in Lahore and Karachi. I mean, they sort of seem to be coming out of your ears.
Yeah. Just 2 days ago, I was, sort of had a presentation at FAST in Karachi and talking to the graduating class, and immediately after the presentation, I was approached by at least 7 or 8 students who had an idea and wanted to set up their own company. Now that is a very, very good thing.
So what are you going to do for them?
Well, all I can do for them is give them advice, tell them where to go, help them in whichever way I can.
I have a suggestion.
Sure, go ahead.
You can't do it for all 7 of them, but maybe if you adopt one and say, okay, in Systems Limited, since you've got 2 different offices in Systems Limited, I will give you a desk, a space where you can hang out, not charge you, and give you some mentoring when you need it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think that we should.
So if they've approached you, maybe if you can do it, you can introduce the rest of them to some of the other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, that we could probably
because the
give
first
them
3
some
months
space
are the most
just a
difficult.
pat on the back every now and then and see what they come out with.
Yeah. Then you know whether they're serious.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I think we should do it.
I get some of these good ideas from time to time. Okay, now you were president of Pasha for a year. you enjoyed it thoroughly, right?
Of course. Nothing to do.
Now tell me, where do you think, I mean, what, the association has matured a lot over the years, and now we finally have a secretariat. There are things we are doing, but there are many more things we can do. Any suggestions, any advice for the association and how it can grow and become much more effective as a lobbying body is?
I think the lobbying body will come probably a little more later. What Pasha and Computer Society, because I was president of
you were president of that
thing as well.
Yeah.
What they need to do is reach out to their members far more.
Right.
Have events. I mean, I miss having a forum a month type of thing. I know it's difficult to do, but that is what is needed, because that's where all of us get together and then become a bigger voice.
Right.
Unless and until there are companies actively participating in Pasha, like systems like NetSol, like ITLOW,
yeah, the smaller
and, so
the bigger companies.
The smaller and the bigger companies, they will not become a force or a lobby that the government will look at.
Right.
Because if I am going directly to the government and NetSol is going separately and ITLOW is going separately, they will not listen to Pasha as much as if we would say, okay, Pasha is taking care of our business, you better listen to them.
Right.
So I think it's reaching out to the members which is needed as probably the single most important thing that Pasha can do at this point.
But haven't you felt, I know as systems you've always been a part of ITLOW, several companies have been a part of the association, but very often the tendency, as you say, is for the larger companies to not wait for the association to take on an initiative. It's the smaller companies who say, okay, we don't have a voice, we'll come to Pasha and they will take this forward.
What I'm saying is that if you have far more events
yeah.
where all the companies come and meet,
yeah.
then it will
automatically
make,
they'll become.
Yeah, it will make the systems and the ITLOWs of this world to say, okay, our Pasha is doing this, let me help them do this or whatever. Okay. But if we are not coming to any events, then that links get breaking.
Okay. So more networking events, more
networking events,
sort of even social events.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. And food always brings people together.
Food always brings yeah.
So somebody even suggested duck hunting, Somebody suggested.
Well, that's a
but
difficult one.
I'm not going to do that. So. Okay, thanks a lot, Ashraf, for coming in.
Always a pleasure.
I hope that we can work together, especially on the initiative for young entrepreneurs. I think it's something that we need to do. And you've already volunteered for a few things.
Not only volunteered, I would, you know me. I mean, if I'm said it.
No, definitely. That was Ashraf Kapadia, Managing Director of Systems Limited, and he's volunteered for a couple of things, and we are going to make sure he sticks to it. He's always been a part of the industry. Even when he was with IBM, he was sort of remotely a part of our industry. But now he is, but he says he started the industry.
Of course.
And but now he is very much a part of the local industry, and we are very happy to have him with us. This is Jahara signing off from In the Line of Wire.